This is the Jasion EB5 Electric Bike. I just wanted to share my experience with this in case anyone else is considering it. When I pulled it out and looked it over, the first thing I noticed was how clean and straightforward it looks. Nothing about it feels flashy. It just looks like a practical electric bike that is trying to be easy to live with. The frame feels solid when I grab it and shift it around, but it is not so heavy that I dread moving it. I live in an apartment, so that matters. I have had bikes that were a pain to get through a doorway or nudge into a corner. This one is still a real bike with some weight to it, but it has been manageable for me to lift and reposition when I need to. This is the kind of bike I see working for someone who wants help on commutes, errands, or casual rides, without having to treat cycling like a workout every time. I also think it fits someone who wants an electric bike that still feels like a bike. You can pedal normally. You can get assistance when you want it, and you can also use the throttle when you are tired or dealing with traffic. Setup was easier than I expected. I am not the person who loves building bikes from scratch, and I usually assume I am going to mess something up. Here, most of it was already put together. I installed the front wheel, the handlebar, the seat, and the pedals. That was basically it. I took my time, checked everything twice, and I was riding in about 15 minutes. The instructions got me through it, but they are not the clearest thing I have ever read. If you have never touched a wrench in your life, you might want someone nearby the first time, or plan on a quick visit to a local bike shop to double-check the bolts and brake alignment. The first ride told me a lot. The tires are 26 inches, and in real life that means it feels stable, like it wants to track straight. I ride on a mix of city pavement, cracked sidewalks, and sometimes a park path that is not exactly smooth. The front suspension fork helps more than I expected. It does not turn it into a mountain bike, but it takes the edge off potholes, rough seams in the road, and curb ramps. Without that suspension, those same spots would feel sharp through your hands and arms. Here, it feels more muted, which makes longer rides less tiring. The motor is 350 watts, and the way it behaves is what matters. When I pedal with assistance on, it does not feel like the bike is trying to run away from me. It feels like I am having a good leg day. There are 3 assistance levels. On the lowest level, I was cruising around 10 miles per hour without feeling like I was pushing hard. It felt natural, like the bike was just taking the weight off my legs. On the highest level, it is noticeably stronger. I could get up near 20 miles per hour without feeling like I was grinding. That is also the level where moderate hills stopped being a big deal. I still knew I was going uphill, but I did not arrive sweaty and annoyed. The throttle is there when you want it, and I used it more than I thought I would. Not for the whole ride, but for the annoying parts. Starting from a stoplight, getting through an intersection, or pulling away when cars are stacked behind you, it is just less stressful when you can move immediately without searching for the right gear. I still prefer pedal assist for most of my riding because I like feeling involved, but having the throttle made the bike easier to use in real traffic. Battery life was my biggest question going in. This bike uses a 360 watt-hour removable battery. What I like is the removable part. I can take the battery inside and charge it, instead of dragging the bike near an outlet. In my riding, I usually got around 30 to 40 miles on a charge. That depended on how often I used the throttle and how high I kept the assist level. If I stayed on the lowest assist and actually pedaled, the battery stretched further. If I rode aggressively, used the throttle a lot, and kept the assist high, I watched the battery drop faster. Charging took around 5 to 6 hours for me, so I usually plugged it in at night and did not think about it again. There is a display on the handlebars, and it ended up being more useful than I expected. While riding, I like being able to glance down and see speed, distance, and battery level without guessing. It also has a universal serial bus port. I used it to top off my phone during a longer ride, and it worked fine for that. The controls are simple, and that is what I want on a bike. I do not want to be hunting through menus while I am rolling. For lighting, the headlight is bright enough for dim streets. I used it in the early evening and felt visible, and it helped me see the road surface better. The rear light is not built into the bike in the same seamless way. It is something you attach and charge separately. It works, but it is one more thing to remember, and I would rather it be integrated. This bike has 7 gears, and I like that it stays simple. Shifting felt smooth most of the time. I did have a little bit of chain skipping when I was in higher gears early on, especially when I pushed hard. It was not constant, but it happened enough that I noticed. I brought it to a bike shop for a basic tune, and it improved. That is pretty normal for a shipped bike, but I think it is worth budgeting a little time for that first adjustment. Braking has been solid. It uses mechanical disc brakes front and rear. In dry conditions, stopping felt predictable and quick. In slightly wet conditions, I still felt in control. It does not have that vague, delayed feeling some cheaper brakes can have. I always recommend practicing a few hard stops in a safe area when you get any new bike, and when I did that here, the brakes behaved consistently. Comfort is good for my body type. The seat height adjusts easily, and I was able to dial in a position that did not make my knees feel cramped. The handlebars also have enough adjustment that I could set a posture that felt upright without feeling like I was reaching too far forward. After longer rides, my hands and wrists felt better than I expected, and I think the combination of the front suspension and a stable frame helped with that. In daily use, the thing I appreciate most is that it fits into normal life. I rode it to run errands and did not worry about arriving sweaty. I used it on a weekend ride where the pavement changes constantly, and it stayed comfortable enough that I kept going longer than planned. I also tried carrying a couple of grocery bags, and the bike stayed stable, although you still need to be sensible about weight and balance. There are a couple of real downsides I want to mention. Shipping can be a bit of a gamble. My unit showed up mostly fine, but I did have a small issue that looked like it happened during transit. Nothing that stopped me from riding, but it reminded me that you should inspect everything carefully before your first ride. Also, if you plan long day trips, you will want a charging plan. The range is enough for commuting and typical rides, but if you are the kind of person who rides all day, you may want to bring the charger or plan a stop. Overall, after using the Jasion EB5 as part of my routine, I get why people consider a bike like this. It takes the stress out of hills, headwinds, and stop-and-go traffic. It is not complicated to operate, it is not intimidating to ride, and it does what I need it to do without demanding a lot of extra effort. I still feel like I am riding a bike, just with support when I want it. I will leave detailed information about the Jasion EB5 electric bike in the comments for your reference. Thank you for watching.